Welcome back to the BlissTonic podcast. If this is your first time, oh hello, what an episode to drop into. Thank you so much for being here and choosing to show up for yourself and spend a little time with me. So for today's episode, it is especially important that we just take a moment to ground. And so I'll have you, if you're able to, close down the eyes. And whether you're standing, you're seated, in motion, just kind of connect to the places of you that are grounded or touching the earth beneath you. We'll take a couple deep breaths in the nose and out the nose. And we'll lengthen the exhale so it's a little longer than the inhale. And feel the jaw softening. Feel your body relaxing into the present moment. Into this space where you're ready to receive information, sensory input, very consciously and very intentionally. And one more breath all the way full, and then a really nice long exhale. And then you can come back, opening your eyes if they were closed down. And today we're going to be talking about integration. And this is the most important really part of any spiritual practice, but in a really grounded way. How much content do you consume in any given day? How many posts do you scroll through? How many podcasts do you listen to regularly? Do you listen to audiobooks or read paperback or hardcover books? Do you engage with other forms of consumption of content through the senses? And how much time do you spend in that consuming versus how much time do you spend in conscious integration of what you have taken in through the senses? And especially if you are like me, and if you're here, chances are you also like to consume content. Like you're here, you're consuming this personal growth, spiritual development content. And so my question to you is, what is your relationship to integration and this processing of content? And so, why is that so important? Well, it's very, very important if we're wanting to actually make changes in our life because of the content we're consuming, right? Especially if we follow a lot of accounts on social media that provide inspiring content, if we're consuming podcasts or any other form of content that is meant to help us. And so this is where we get a lot of people, they've read all the books. They've read all the books, they've listened to the podcasts, and shit's just not working the way that they want it to based on the inspiration and the content they've been consuming. And if this is you, hello and welcome to the club, because you're not alone. This is a part of our society, says that it encourages us to continue our consumption and to stay in the mode of consumption. Even the way we eat a lot of times leaves not very much room for the integration or elimination. I just read a post today about somebody who manifested a job and that they thought they had wanted, but it kind of wasn't sitting right. And the part of the reason it wasn't sitting right is because they had timed bathroom breaks. Our body doesn't work like that. We need time to eliminate properly. And it's just such a huge, huge issue in our society. And so you can use it in the, context of consuming food, consuming drinks, consuming, drugs or alcohol, always in consuming. And we're taught that like that's okay to just continue doing that. And now the apps, our social media apps, are designed to keep us in the consuming mode. So today's episode is for you. If this all makes sense and you're like, hey, that's me. And this is partly inspired by a road trip I recently did, where I finished 3 books, probably listened to over 30 podcasts, and here's what I did to integrate. So how can we integrate the content we're consuming? It starts by questioning, am I consciously consuming this? And do we always need to be in 100% conscious consuming? Like maybe not, but we can probably do better. That's my opinion of myself. It's like, yeah, we could probably do less scrolling. And I'm gonna share a story about, TikTok. You can stumble upon trauma that's just like, it stays in your subconscious. And this is, I think, a really important piece of the integration and the consciously consuming, is we can stumble upon something that will scar us for life. Like, I think we should be a lot more careful with our scrolling, not just because it's like a bad habit or we lose time, but because we can actively become traumatized forever, or whatever that means for you. But like, we can really become traumatized by one story we hear, one thing we stumble upon. And so the first question is, am I consciously consuming? Do I need to be consuming this? Right? And to help you further dive into that is, do I want to integrate what I'm consuming? That's the big question. And the difference is, like, if you're listening or scrolling or following accounts that are offering you inspiring information, do I want to integrate this? Yes, cool. Next step is for you. If you're still like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm consuming a lot more content that I even want to integrate, it's more about elimination then. How do I eliminate this from my system once I've taken in this information or this entertainment, whatever it happens to be? Like, how do we eliminate it? Same as when we take in food, we can either integrate it or we can eliminate it, or we integrate what's useful and then eliminate the rest. And so I think it always starts by stop putting more shit in. So you need to hear that today. If you need to be inspired to stop your scrolling, at least for today, then just stop putting more stuff in. Give your system a break. Our entire nervous system through the senses is constantly taking in information, perceiving threats. And our mind does not know what is a threat in real life versus imaginary or perceived threat. And this is why so many of us are walking around with our flight, fight, or freeze activated and perpetually, and it's producing hormones like cortisol in excess to the point where we become addicted to it, and this can wreak major havoc on our entire mind, body, energetic systems. And so please, like, just start to question, do I want to be integrating, or do I just not need to be engaging with this content? Second, how do we eliminate it once we've taken it in? Like, here's my story. Okay, TikTok. I was on TikTok, like, in all honesty, like in the bathroom, and I was just scrolling, and I don't know how I ended up in this side of TikTok, but I heard a story about Britney Spears and this house she used to live in. And this was a story from her makeup artist. Maybe you know it, I don't know, I'd never heard this story before. But that she had some sort of like spirit, energy healer, medicine man visit the home. And I don't know what kind of service she got from this person, but she said that she thought that this person opened a portal in her home, and that she was very, very afraid, and that there was a spirit trying to kill her, basically, and got like really bad vibes and tried to push her down the stairs, like all of these things, which is like, hey, how terrifying is that when you are engaging with the spirit world already, you know that that kind of stuff exists. You've been attacked energetically by negative entities before, right? Like, so all of these things are just like, I'm consuming this, right? Okay, well, shit gets worse. Okay, so then she immediately moved into a hotel and sold the house and everything in it. Like, it freaked her out that much that she sold everything in this house. Now, did I fact check this? No. TikTok, anything could be true. This could not even be true, right? So turns out who she sold the house to is Brittany Murphy. I don't know, and I don't know. I don't really follow celebrities that much, but I had to remember, and I looked up Brittany Murphy. Okay, so Brittany Murphy died in that house of suspiciously, apparently. And then 5 months later, her husband died in that house suspiciously. So it's like, oh my God. Okay, so here I am on TikTok at bedtime, which is not the time to be accidentally consuming like demonic content, which of course freaked me the fuck out. And of course Dan was drinking coffee, so he was all like, I'm not going to bed yet. And so I had to go to bed alone, which I really hate doing. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to process and integrate this so I don't like, and eliminate it, because I don't want to be in this energy of like, well, fuck, like, you know, you're washing your face and you're like, is it behind me? That was like the fear of just like this one TikTok I stumbled upon had such an impact. And that happens all of the time. And my nervous system was affected. Like, we don't even realize really until we start to notice how our body is reacting. The stories that our mind makes up based on this sensory information taken in by the nervous system, sent up to the brain to receive a story around this nervous system activation of, hey, we should probably be afraid. What are we afraid of? Okay, let's like, you know what I mean? So that's like the process of the body trying to protect us, but it's not a real threat, right? Or is it? Okay, so how do we eliminate it? Let's just get right to it. So in elimination, you have to first look at it. There's some form of integration that has to take place. So when we're constantly in this like, no, I didn't see that, I didn't read that, I didn't hear that, like, I'm afraid, I have to distract myself. And the thing is, we like put our tendrils back out into the world when we really need to turn inwards and face whatever it is, look at it, come into our body, and then just feel, where is it in my body? What is the body telling me about how I feel about this information that I accidentally consumed? And so it's part contemplation and then part transmutation. We have to go into it. We have to look at it. The further, we turn away from it, the more it affects us. The more we turn away from it, the more it affects us. And so we have to turn in. We have to turn into it. Whether it's like, I don't know, there's all sorts of fucked up shit out there on the internet. It's like one thing. It could be any number of triggering or traumatic things that we accidentally see. And then we're like, oh no, I hate that. Like, whatever sort of abuse or trauma is out there, like we look away from it. And so we have to look into it. We have to look into our own body to decide, okay, where is it in my body? How can I feel that feeling without the story? And then realize, oh, this is just a story. This is just my body's actually response to keep me safe. That, oh, my body loves me so much, it wants me to stay safe. And so it's creating these hormones and chemicals in the body that help keep me safe. But I actually am safe. And so how can I just thank my body for trying to keep me safe, thank my limbic system for trying to keep me safe, and receiving these messages and creating certain chemicals that are going to keep me safe. And then, so that's the contemplation piece of like, hey, body, I'm actually okay. And then you have to go into the body and you can transmute that with the same breath that we started our podcast with. The inhale and the exhale that's twice as long is a really great way to just calm down the nervous system into a space of safety. You can also just work with the pendulum technique, which is something that we revisited in the integrated shadow program, of like finding that part in the body that feels good, bringing it back to that space where you're feeling that activation, and going back and forth, bringing essentially the energy of that part of your body that feels good up into the part of your body that feels activated, and kind of just going back and forth and softening that. Okay. So that's number one of how do we integrate? Like, do we just need to consider what we're consuming? Number two, here's what I did, and I was the weirdo who is with the little AirPods going for a walk and talking to myself. And not only talking to myself, but I voice memo recording myself. So one of the books I finished was by Glennon Doyle, The Untamed. And so, for instance, I got up in the morning, I went for my walk, and I thought, I just finished one book, and then I went to that book. I finished the Edward Casey files, which is really interesting stuff on the Akashic Records. He was one of the original record readers with a really huge database of information that followed people from their reading all the way through life. So it's really cool. There's a whole foundation for that. But then I went to Untamed and finished that book. And I thought, what did I learn from this? What am I going to take from this and integrate into my life? Or what did I learn about myself in the process, right? So these are all questions that I ask myself. And just kind of talking to myself, talking through it, thinking, what did I learn from this book? And I'm going to share with you. Here's what I learned from that book. I'm a fucking grown-ass woman, and I can do whatever the fuck I want. Honestly, and that's what I said to myself in my voice memos, like, you know what, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm a grown-ass woman. Like, I don't have to explain to anybody. I don't have to do anything. And the second piece was, I've always just done whatever I wanted anyways. I never really subscribed to this tamed woman paradigm. And that's something that I was like, hey, actually, that's really cool. My upbringing led me to this place where I felt like, hey, I could always just do whatever the fuck I want. And of course, there's consequences for when that isn't in alignment, or when society has expectations that I don't meet. So yeah, I can do whatever I want. Obviously, expectations, but it helps you deal with any moments when you're feeling guilt or shame because of that lack of integration. We don't, and it's the same with guilt and shame. We look away and we're like, oh, I can't look at that. When instead it's like, hey, look at it, feel it. This is a message from my nervous system saying, hey, we're not really safe right now. And why is that? And so really just starting to go inward. Okay, so we can journal about it. What are my main takeaways from this piece of content? And I encourage you to do this, not just for books that you finish and read. You can do this for every single podcast you listen to. What am I going to take away? What am I learning? What am I going to, take from this piece of content and run with? Or, hey, actually, this didn't sit right with me. This doesn't really serve me right now, or I didn't really learn anything. Cool. That's great. You don't need to always be in that space of, hey, that was a major epiphany, right? Sometimes it's just, I already knew that, and you get validation from somebody else saying it. It's like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. So you can journal, you can do a voice memo depending on kind of what you resonate with most, whether it's the auditory, kinesthetic, the talking to yourself, right? So we can do talking to ourselves, we can talk to other people, we can share a piece of that information with a friend, whether it's a text message, a phone call, whatever it is, a walk outside, just kind of having a discussion with a friend. So whether we want to share with somebody else, we can talk to ourselves, you can write it down, you can just sit in contemplation and feeling in your body of, oh, how does this piece of content make me feel? And so these are all components of integration of content So it's first questioning, do I need to consume it? Second, consuming what you've already, or integrating and eliminating what you've already consumed. And in that time, and this is the third one, is actually integrating. What did I learn? All of that stuff. And there's one more piece to this, is silence. Silence is such a commodity in our society. Let's sit in silence for just 1 second as I sip coffee. It just takes one moment. But we are constantly reaching outward. And so a lot of this work is about turning inward. All of the work, the internal work, the healing, the personal development work is really about turning back inward. And yes, there's space of contemplation and learning and integration, but sometimes we just need silence to integrate. Sometimes we need to pause the consuming altogether. Take a whole month off of consuming anything. I think this is important practice, whether it's just getting off of social media, or I'm not going to listen to any podcasts for a month. I'm not going to read any books for a month. That's okay too. It's okay to pause consumption completely and just be in your own energies. And in fact, I think it's something that's very, very important, especially if you're a content creator out there, especially if you are offering things into the world, helping and assisting other people on their path in some way, is that we need to just be in our own energy, and we don't get that opportunity very much. And so being in your own energy can just look like, when was the last time you laid down? Not in Shavasana, not at the end of a yoga class, but you just laid down and you weren't reading a book, you weren't listening to anything, you weren't talking to anybody, and you just laid there. It's a form of meditation in and of itself to just be nope. And then you get a little thought that says, hey, reach for your phone and just look at this one thing. Or hey, let's make sure we don't have something going on. We constantly feel like we should be doing something. I get that all the time. I feel like I'm forgetting something every moment that I relax. And so I'm going to leave you with that after this episode, can you take even 30 seconds, put everything away, and just be with your own energy? You can open your eyes. You don't have to sit in meditation. It can just be being where you are for 30 seconds. All right, we're going to end the episode there today. And I want to put one little plug. Don't do it now. And if you forget, whatever, to come back to it at a different time. I'm going to plug it everywhere. But in the private Facebook community group, the BlissTonic Seekers, I am offering a free 5-day workshop called Up Level. And so a lot of what I talked about the way our nervous system works, we're going to be putting that on top of the model of the chakra and energy system. We're going to dive into shadow work and manifestation, the importance of that. And then we're going to go into the context of intuitive development and why it's so important on this path, not just for funsies, because we, get to have fun mystical experiences, but because it actually helps us see and observe and be aware of unseen forces that direct our life. And so if you're interested in joining, it's totally free, and it's inside the Facebook group, and you have to register if you want to get the workbook and kind of get the full experience, and the videos will only be up in the Facebook group for the duration of the workshop, and then they're coming down from the Facebook group. So make sure you register so you have access to all of that, and just have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Kyle, the producer of this podcast. You're amazing. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.